Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I have two very special guests on the show with me today, Kay and Shi, who are going to be talking about many things in determination, personal growth, mindset, confidence, and much, much more. And I'm very fortunate enough to be in the same neuroencoding space as them. And I've got my special t-shirt on today as well, just for this occasion. So welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here.
We are so delighted to be on with you today, Johnny. Thanks for having us on, and thanks for having a podcast with such a positive mission and such a far impact. I know you reach and touch a lot of people, and we're grateful to get to be part of that today.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you definitely will be a great impact from, that's why I invited you on the show, of course. So just a quick introduction and then we'll dive into the conversation. So sisters Kay and Shi grew up in a family breakfast restaurant business and for 19 years have helped grow it into a thriving chain. Now they speak, consult and partner with leaders and are passionate about equipping and empowering others, which is awesome. So kind of my first question to kind of kick us off in this conversation really is, how did you get from the point of obviously getting involved in the restaurant business to stepping out and getting involved in other areas like speaking and consulting?
Well, when I was 10 and Shiloh was 17, our parents purchased a single location restaurant up in a California mountain ski town called Truckee, California. And it was at that time that kind of overnight, her and I gained what we like to call the front row seat to the drama of American entrepreneurship.
And quite the drama it's been, over those last 19 years. We took the one failing location as a family, worked it together, bussing tables, cracking eggs, washing dishes, doing the aprons at home, and grew it into a 10 location, multi-state chain with a couple of hundred employees. So when we tell you we've been through the entrepreneurial ringer, we certainly have. We've experienced everything from vendor negotiations to lease contracts to guest service and hospitality to employment law, all of the things that come along with brick and mortar entrepreneurship, which we're so glad as we've gotten to move into other spaces. For those of you who are listening, you're likely in some of the service-based economy, you're in coaching, you're in speaking, you're in training, you're in a service exchange environment, and we can tell you it's a lot easier to manage than brick and mortar, but what we've learned in brick and mortar translates really well to all kinds of different realms, and you don't have to learn it the hard way like we did.
Well, as we were kids growing up, being an entrepreneurial family wasn't the only thing that was different about us. While a lot of moms were reading, Cinderella or The Little Mermaid to their kids, our mom was reading to us The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so we had a foundation of personal growth and development that started at a really young age. And so when we got an opportunity to work with the John Maxwell team to help them with their marketing, to bring some of the marketing principles that we learned through the restaurant company that helped us to gain national attention here in the States into the marketing for a leadership organization, like Shiloh said, out of the brick and mortar and into the service-based industries, we found that, of course, a lot of those principles were the same, but we already had this great foundation of material that allowed us to kind of marry the best of both worlds, right? Being a smart and savvy entrepreneur, having to work with small budgets and then translating that into a high budget environment where you've got a lot of moving parts, but it's a lot more intellectual property. So we had a lot of fun getting to see those things translate, and it's all thanks to our foundations in personal growth and development and entrepreneurialism.
Well, what I love about that too is that that drove us when we hit that point where we had 4 locations open as a restaurant family, but we were maxed and we were stressed. And so we went, we know personal growth and development. We went and started looking for the resources that could help us apply those principles to our business, which is how we found ourselves as part of the John Maxwell team, and then being invited in to help them build that marketing system was such a joy, because once again, we got the front row seat. And I don't want to call it the drama of the self-development world, but
it kind of is.
But certainly there's a lot of theatrics and there's a lot of mechanics and moving parts, and we got to experience that on that side of things. So doing that for 5 years, 6 years, and then getting the opportunity to partner with Dr. Joseph McClendon III to co-found and launch the Neural Encoding Institute was certainly a dream come true, and something that we're probably most proud of right now and most excited for the future.
Awesome. It's been a great journey, and I love the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a great book. It's a big book, so reading your kids that at bedtime is certainly not an all-in-one sitting, let's put it that way. But
Thanks,
yeah.
Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. Yeah, love that. Fantastic. So obviously you've been through a number of changes, and as I know you, but obviously to the listener, you've been through a number of changes. You've tried a different amount of things. Obviously that was likely to test you and to grow you as you were stepping into new spaces and different environments and new responsibilities. So how important has it been to make sure you've also been making some time for yourself as well, with all this crazy business going on as well?
We've actually had to learn that lesson the hard way multiple times, right? Expending yourself for the business, while at the detriment of family or personal goings, and vice versa, right? Leaning too hard into family or leaning too hard into extra entrepreneurial endeavors while not keeping the pulse on a business that needs it and seeing that business go. So finding the right balance and the right harmony that it takes to flow between the things, it has been a challenge for us, for sure.
Yeah, we haven't always been very good at prioritizing that harmonization, and we try and use that more often conceptually than the word balance, just because if you think about someone who's trying to balance something, it's this active process, whereas harmonizing means that sometimes you're going to flow in and out, but it all comes together. But I would wager that if you're listening to this right now, that you can probably resonate with the whole getting really passionate and focused on what it is that you're building and doing and trying to grow. And sometimes that is required. If you think about a business and the life cycle of a business, it starts in infancy. And what do we know about infants? They're a lot of work, right, Kay? You have a 9-week-old. Yeah. They're a lot of work. They take a tremendous amount of dedication and focus. And when you have an infant at home, you're not always thinking about what does my balance look like for travel and for work and for my finances. You come solely focused in on that. But what lots of people, including us, have done is, even as it comes out of the infancy stage, you continue that level of focus, and that can ultimately end up choking the growth, not only of the organization or the business or the mission, but also of your own growth and your spirit. So it's definitely something that we actively try to manage on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love kind of your correction of the word balance there, because it's never going to be 50-50, your personal and professional life, is it? So yes, that is a really good point you pointed out there, because there are some stages, right, in life. Maybe sometimes your personal life might be a bit of there may be challenges in that, and actually you've got a bit more focus in that. It happens to people, whether in a business or a corporate job, and we have to do that. So I love the way that you said sometimes, yeah, you do have to focus on one, but there are those times to kind of reflect a little bit. So when one of the key things we certainly learn in Neuro Encoding, I of course wanted to bring this up in here, is one of the key questions we ask is, what do you want? What do you want, rather than what do you not want? And which is a question that quite a lot of the population, in all honesty, including myself in the past, have asked ourselves, what do we not want, instead of what do we want? So throughout your, through your business and this progression, is that kind of a question you've been asking yourselves an awful lot throughout it, just finding that time to ask it?
Yeah, well, in 2020, at least here in our region, we had a big shift happen in March. March 17th of 2020, our businesses as restaurants were deemed non-essential. And overnight, we lost 85% of the profitability within the restaurants. There was no money coming in, but we still had bills to pay. We still had labor, to people to pay who were in. We had rents to pay. So none of our expenses went away, but our revenue went went away. And in that opportunity of the business being in such jeopardy, and mind you, a business that we had at that point in our lives for 17 years. In 2020, it had been 17 years. We grew up with it. We had our hands in it. We had so much identity wrapped into this business. And, they said 2 weeks, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks here. It was kind of the song that they were singing. And it ended up being 12 weeks that we were fully shut down. And when we did reopen, it was with modifications. And we really had to kind of dig deep because there was this potential in that moment that the restaurant company would no longer be our job, our identity, our family's future, or what we could kind of hang our hats on. There wasn't, it could fail, right? We had this for the first time ever. The whole rug could have gotten swept away. And so it opened up a gap for Shyla and I to start asking that question of like, okay, well, if it's not this, then what do we want?
Right? What do we want? And that question, we've worn it in so many shades, as I'm sure all of you have as well, right? Like, what do you want for your fitness? What do you want for your business? What do you want for your life development over time? And it changes. Sometimes in the past, because if you're in this industry, people are going to talk about this all the time, right? Clarity on your goals. What's the result? What's the outcome? What do you want? So we all almost say it automatically, right? Like, we know that's what we're supposed to say and what we're supposed to focus on. But when we actually look at it, sometimes we've swung in the direction of being too precise with it. Okay, well, if I'm supposed to make a decision, then I want 100 locations in 5 years, right? Like, but is that really what you want, or is that you trying to make an impressive goal? And so the nature and dynamic of how we've answered and approached that both depends on the specific area that you're looking at and what it is that you're talking about within a context. For us, though, that answer is really evolved over time to less be about those income or those outcomes and those results, and much more about that, how do we enjoy the journey along the way, right? What do I want? I want to have a magical, delightful skip through life, enjoying the opulence and luxury of everything that this environment has to offer, right? Like, that's what I really want. And I want to be able to use my gift to impact others. And I know that so many of you can resonate with that as well. And what that takes is then character building along the way. So a lot of what we try to do is think about, what do I want in terms of who do I want to be? Because that's the person that walks that journey. That's the person that is enjoying or not enjoying the experience, regardless of what that experience is in front of us. So for us, we've really looked at who are those characters we want to be and how do we want to build those. And for us, as that rug got, sort of pulled out, one, we went gas pedal down on anything to save the family business. Other stories maybe for another time. We've done a lot of creative stuff to keep our family business afloat and alive. We made it. We're fine. Things are actually thriving in the restaurant business and we're doing great over there. But as that got pulled out and we kind of had this creative space to say, what do we want? Who do we want to be? We knew we wanted to be the kind of people that stood up for the kinds of messages that were worth fighting for. And one of those for us in particular is the message of racial equality and racial inequity. And we started a series right there in April of 2020 called Bold Conversations, Bridging the Racial Divide, where we started asking influential Black leaders that we could get in contact with to have an interview with us where we were able to just ask questions, get a little awkward, find out what some of those boundaries were so that we could help hopefully encourage and inspire others to do that. Now, one of those guests was Dr. Joseph McClendon III, and 6 months later, we got reconnected with him again as he was asking for marketing help, and sort of the rest is quote history, us getting to then launch into the Neuroencoding Institute. So by us approaching the what do you want during the time of extreme transition and allowing ourselves to see it through the lens of who do we want to be, then led us down the path of engaging in some material and some behavior that ultimately unfolded a life that is really cool and a journey that we're really enjoying.
Yeah, really, really valid, great points about enjoying the journey as well. And one thing I've been trying to practice, and it's certainly something I've encouraged clients to do, is focusing on one of your priorities being how you want to feel, not like the outcome to get the feeling. It's about looking to get that feeling now, whether that's joy, whether that's excitement, which obviously very much interlinked, whether that's feeling more confident now, seeing what you can do for that. And I know being a massive Tony Robbins fan as well, that's something he encourages as well. So Yeah, I like what you said about the journey rather than necessarily trying to be really specific and being like, I'm trying to hit that, which is great because you know where you're going. And there's always setting goals and direction. And I'm actually doing a Think and Grow Rich course at the moment, but it's great to have those visions. But I love what you said about empowering you. Well, feeling more in the moment now by actually enjoying what you're doing right now. And look where it's led you, for the example of having the opportunity with Joseph by just setting out on your various missions and interviews. So great point there. Love that. So one other thing kind of that came up for me there a little bit is that obviously you talked about a couple of knockbacks you would have, particularly in 2020. I think a lot of us can relate to that in terms of obviously COVID, the pandemic and everything like that. But in general, I guess you've had knockbacks in business, right? Like when it's been tough times as well. And for me, the more I've kind of grown as well as many other entrepreneurs I've known, the more you have to work on your emotions, right? Is this something you found that you've had to work on your emotions and managing them the more you've gone through your journey?
Oh my gosh, so much. In fact, we really have just had a humongous dimensional perspective shift for this. In that restaurant company that we were referencing, we have in the last, since launching the Neuroencoding Institute, hired a professional national level CEO to come in and run our operations. So for the first time in 19 years, we have a non-family member actively running, leading, and managing the business, and it's incredibly freeing. But one of the things that has been humongous for us is the fact that observing this professional CEO in this space and leading in the way that he does made us realize all of a sudden, because he's now dealing with the onslaught of questions and operations and issues and challenges that we used to deal with, and the wave crashes and we know how we would have responded, but he responds in a way that's completely not emotional, that's logical, that's curious, that's open to new suggestions, and he'll get to solutions. And sometimes it's a different path, but like the first few incidences where we were like felt that knee-jerk trigger emotional response to that onslaught of operations and expectations from a position like that, and then observing that he didn't react in that way, we were like, OMG, we were really emotionally involved on a level that we had lost control over and we weren't aware of.
I think that was really rooted within the amount of identity that we took within the restaurant, right? How personally we took everything, because we had that business equals us, right? That business equals our family identity. That business is who we are personally. And so when things would happen, we would take it personally. And there's, you're a person, you're allowed to take things personally. It's okay. But if we think about emotion, we've heard it described often as energy in motion. And as if you don't have any discipline around your emotions or no awareness that they can kind of take you off on their little journey that they want to take you off on, oftentimes we can take things or internalize things personally that aren't meant that way and allow that emotion to get stoked inside. And so I heard a quote recently, I think it was Tony Robbins who said it, and he said, discipline your disappointment. And I'd like to, expand even that a little bit more, just disciplining your emotions in general, or finding separation from your identity to your emotions, because you're the spiritual being that inhabits a body that is equipped with a system that flows energy through it. And when your energy is in motion, it creates emotion inside of you. But whether your awareness goes along with that emotion or stays home where you are, can really influence your quality of the moment.
Yeah, a lot what you said about separating your identity from your emotions. I was just listening to Peter Sage, who's actually a former guest on here as well, and he talks about that in self-mastery a lot. And it's when we can get these feelings, and it's about observing sometimes where it's going on in the body, and then it's remembering that that's not your identity, that's an emotion you're feeling. So yeah, great point in that. And then I've not actually heard that Tony quote, so discipline your discipline your
disappointment. And what he's really talking about, is your ability to rise when you get disappointed. Like, how quickly can you get back up when you get knocked back down? And the more that you discipline your level of disappointment, okay, I'm disappointed, but I'm going to move forward and I'm going to keep going.
Brilliant. Okay, no, that's a very good point. And one thing a lot of people experience, particularly as you're growing in the entrepreneur space, but any time you're developing really is the feeling of fear, and then kind of the fear of rejection or failure, especially when you're going into new things. These kind of feelings can arrive a little bit. And obviously, I've when I first met you two, very charismatic, great speakers, very great influencers, very like loving and caring towards who they're talking to. And I'm like, wow, these two are like really charismatic, not in a way of like, oh, I wish I was like that, but like, wow, that's possible, and kind of working on myself at the same time, which is the way I see it. But lots of us get caught in this trap of fear, and it holds us back, right? If there was someone who was looking to start something like maybe a business, for example, but they're a little bit fearful of putting themselves out there, or maybe things like social media, what kind of guidance would you give to them?
I'd love to just start this one, and I'll pass to you, Shai, really quick. But I heard something recently that's been fueling me in times of fear, and I love it. That it's this idea that you have already survived 100% of your bad days. All of the hard things that have so far occurred in your life, you have overcome them. If you are still standing, you are here today, your eyes are open, you're engaging, obviously you're listening to a podcast, you've already done a bunch of hard stuff. Your life is filled with, I'm sure, ups and downs and challenges, and you've already made it through 100% of those challenges. So what are the challenges to come other than what you've already overcome?
Oh, I love that perspective. Bringing that forward too just helps like bolster, I think, somebody. And I know for me, like in the face of fear or something about the unknown, like prep work, like orient yourself to what it is that you're going to do. If you're like, all right, I'm going to be a great piano player, like then you know you have to practice piano, and you probably have to get a piano book and a piano teacher, right? So like orienting yourself to what it is that you want to do. Like I have this dream that I'm going to write a book, right? Well, A, you do have to write the book, and you can just start writing, but B, there's so much prep that you can put into that. You should be looking at what other books are in that space. What programs could you engage in? What are some of the best practices? Have you spent 5 minutes on YouTube looking it up? We see this all the time in the nonprofit space, which is beautiful because so many people have a heart to serve. But what happens is they say, no one's doing anything about the homeless issue. I'm going to start a charity or a foundation. Well, the truth is there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work for homeless people. And if you spent a little bit of time prep working, and you could see, well, maybe I'm most interested in homeless pets or homeless children or homeless veterans, or maybe I'm most interested in the homelessness right in my community. Well, there's an organization or something or someone who's already doing quite a bit with that you could maybe go interview or partner with or start learning from or ask to be their mentee. And as you do that prep work, you get more oriented into the industry that you're going into, or the mission that you're going to try, or the goal that you're going to achieve if it's like a fitness thing, and you get to learn more along the way. So I think being able to first remind yourself you've done a lot of hard things already. Second, take any kind of action and activity so that you can just gain some clarity and make some progress and steps towards it. And third, be dedicated to doing the prep work, to doing the homework, to the orientation. If you're going to fly blind into something, then you probably should be afraid. You should take a little bit of time to look at what else is going on around that, so you've got context around the content of what it is you're trying to achieve.
Like that, being prepared, that can build your confidence a little bit more. But yeah, ultimately there's always going to be that point where you got to take action. But I like the way you've talked about the preparation as well. And like you said, Kay, about we've already survived 100% of our bad days as well. So that's very, very true. So yeah, some valuable information on that one. For you, in terms of going into kind of like building your confidence up, you obviously just talked about preparation, but how has surrounding yourself with the right people impacted you in your journey?
Oh man, well, we partner with each other, so that's very, very
That
helpful.
helps, yeah.
Yes, but being around people who are enlightening, who are loving, who lift you instead of break you down, obviously it would have an influence on who you are, right? If I think it was Jim Rohn who said you are the culmination of the 5 people that you hang out with, right? And so if you're around 5 people, taking a look at those 5 people and saying, if I were to take a personality from each of them and mesh it into a person, do I like that person? And if the answer is no, then you need to start examining the people that you're around. If they don't lift you, if they don't love you, if they don't add value into your life, then chances are they don't belong.
Right. And like it can be so hard because you love a lot of people. And so maybe by default, your 5 people are all people that you love tremendously, but they're not pushing you to grow. They're not encouraging you. They're not helping you create a positive environment. Then it might be time to assess not loving them less, but allowing them less of your time, because when you say yes to that, you have to say no to others. And you can also fill in your 5 people with like not actual humans. Now that's going to be your best, but if you are reading a book by a certain author, you're deep diving on their YouTube channel, and you're surrounding yourself by that presence, then that can be a really helpful way to bring some of those voices in. Like, we are living in the most accessible and accessed world ever in human history. We can find out anything and learn anything at any time. You can also surround yourself with some of the most amazing voices and mentors, even if you don't have direct access to them. So I think maybe being a little bit creative in how you approach that, especially if you've got a fairly rigid physical, proximity to maybe the not best 5 average people, then you got to get resourceful and creative on that, so you can find a way to better that circle. Because if you better the circle, you better your life. And it's also really hard to let go of old circles. If you've had these long-standing friendships, we recently heard a mentor tell us, friendships aren't meant to last a lifetime. They're meant to last a season, and seasons are meant to change, and that's okay. And that was really helpful for us, because sometimes you just feel this loyalty to like, well, we've been friends forever, right? Or we've been connected forever, or I've just had this relationship forever. But realizing that seasons are meant to change, and that's okay, can sometimes free you up to make that better choice.
2 quotes I want to bring up here before we pass it back to you, Johnny. One is by John Maxwell, when he says that if you are the smartest person in the room, it's time to get a new room, which is a great quote that we love. And then another one came, it's not a direct quote from Brene Brown, but I heard it in her book, Atlas of the Heart, where she says that boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and love myself at the same time. And that quote is so, I think, palpable for when you've got those 5 people who are in that physical proximity, and they might not be the most constructive for you. It's time for you to put in place some boundaries, because if you bring forward your ideas, your flow, your excitement to someone who decides to knock those things down every time that you bring them up, it's time for you to put up a boundary and say, I'm not sharing my dreams with you. And it's not that I love you any less. You're my mom, or you're my sister, or you're my child, or whatever that is. It just means that I have to put up some boundaries so that I can love you and love me at the same time.
Thank you for sharing those. That putting those boundaries up as well. And again, like, sometimes it sounds obvious, like, to surround ourselves with, if we want to feel more confident or feel more positive, to surround ourselves with people like that. But it's not always common practice, because we're in the same routines every day and we don't know necessarily what we're doing. So it's always good to kind of just take that time out to reflect on our life and actually see, are these people supporting us as well? And you reminded me, I got my one-on-one with Napoleon Hill after this. Actually, I do like doing the mental practice as well. So the mental board, if anyone's listening, is when you, as Shiloh was kind of touching on a little bit, is it's from the book Think and Grow Rich. I think I first discovered it, but it's been repeated in various forms. But it's when you talk to people you really look up to, or people whose minds you would really like to pick from, people maybe like Winston Churchill for our side, on Napoleon Hills, and then you start imagining having yourself conversations with those people, so that can really move yourself forward. So I'm glad you touched on that, Shiloh. That's a good one. Always a useful one-on-one, as is my one-on-ones with Tony. So love it. Only a couple more questions, but thank you so much for everything you shared so far, really. So one thing I'm very keen on, again, this may sound a bit obvious, but we don't always do it, because the F word, the F word fear comes up sometimes, right? Is the power of investing ourselves for our personal growth, and even for our confidence and that trust within ourselves. Could you tell us a little bit about how much of an impact or not, if it's the case, has investing in yourselves been over the years?
It's been absolutely critical and crucial to our growth, and we would attribute 100% of our growth, and B, our ability to not quit, which we think is one of the most underrated pieces in entrepreneurialism in modern life, is just not quitting. But investing in ourselves in order to build that muscle of not quit has been 100% the reason why we're still here and able to talk about all of those experiences and those roller coasters. Because if you want to achieve anything big, the level of problems, issues, and challenges that are going to come at that same level, that's what you're also agreeing to, requires a certain type of person that is able to stay in the game, that is able to be there, and has enough wherewithal and fortitude of knowing themselves and their environment so that they can handle that level of challenge and issue. And when you put yourself in the environment of investment and growth and personal development and professional development, you are in the gym of training there and being able to do that. So, and we also happen to love it. I know some people maybe don't, but like, how could I, like, for us, it's like, how could you not love sitting in a room or reading a book or listening to a speaker that is talking on the topics of empowerment, of betterment, of positive impact, of better direction for humanity as a species, and as ourselves personally? Like, it's something that we're super passionate about. So it's not hard to convince us. Sometimes we're the ones that have to convince ourselves to pull back a little bit, like, you know, and that's when we really got structured around the boundary for our family and ourselves. Like, what was the growth conference we were going to do each year? What were the programs we were going to engage in together? And what were we going to engage in separately and report back to each other on a mastermind? So it's a key thread of our DNA, and we absolutely love it.
Yeah, very true. I'm with you on that, on like, why do you not love this growing yourselves? It's like so fun. It's like this creation of yourself, right? And you get to be completely in control of that. So thank you for also sharing that view. So kind of my final question really is from each of you is if there's a couple of points that have really helped you build your confidence. Maybe maybe it's from this conversation we've had already, but perhaps 2 or 3 points each that have really helped you build your confidence over the year.
One of the things that, from a confidence perspective, that has come forward, and we've been able to articulate it kind of well in the last few weeks, that I love, is the idea of resilience and resourcefulness. Now, when we think about being resilient, right, that can help you build your confidence, because if I know that I can handle a challenge, then I'm more likely to get out there and try that challenge. But if we look at the definition of resilience, it is the capacity at which we can handle challenges that come our way. Now, when in 2016, we attended our very first Unleash the Power Within event with Tony Robbins, and he talked about the value of resourcefulness. And we were like, man, we can get behind that resourcefulness, because it's this endless thing that you can always draw on when your resources are dry. Now, the idea of resourcefulness, the definition of it is your ability to overcome challenges in quick and clever ways. Now, resilience is your capacity at which you can handle challenges, but your resourcefulness is your ability to overcome. Now, a capacity is how much can I take, right? Like, how many punches in the face can I take? I'm resilient, right? I can take as many as I need to. But when you develop your resourcefulness, you're developing your ability to overcome challenges quickly and cleverly. And so when it comes to building confidence, if you've built your ability to overcome, confidence comes alongside that, right? Because it doesn't matter what the challenge is that's coming my way, I know that I have the ability to handle it because I've developed my resourcefulness, right? Oh, global pandemic come and completely wipe out all of the sales for your restaurant. How are you going to get through it? We didn't know, but we knew that we had the ability to be resourceful enough to figure it out. So I hope that helps to answer your question.
I think too, from my perspective, I would add Two things. One, that keep your promises to yourself is one of the best ways to build confidence. If you always do what you say you're going to do and promise yourself to do, then you know you're the same on the inside as you present on the outside. And there's just such a grounded level of confidence that comes with that, that you know, no matter what, you can rely on you. And that is the ultimate confidence, I believe. The second thing that can help build confidence is, in my perspective, is chunking down all of your expectations on yourself to today. Like, not I want to achieve this humongous thing, or I'm so embarrassed about what I didn't achieve in the past, but like, I will say that I won today if I did what. And then when you fill in those 5 activities or those 7 expectations or those 10 things on your to-do list, and you keep the promise to yourself to do them, then at the end of the day, you say, I won today. And I know that today is all that matters, because, you know, your life is an hourglass, but the one grain in the middle is the one that you've got right now. And it's the only one you have control over. So I always like to think, as I start to get overwhelmed or shaky, or, you know, maybe ill at ease about what's in the future, it's because I'm thinking too big. So chunking it down into what equals a win for today. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it's these 5 things. If I brushed my teeth and put my retainers in, I worked out, I drank enough water, I called the people I was supposed to, and I have no start emails on my list. Like, I won today. And then tomorrow you play the game again. So being able to keep your promises to yourself and focus it down to exactly what you expect yourself in one day to do can help when there's confidence on the line.
Yeah, loved all those tips you just shared there. And yes, having that big vision and, you know, thinking big, but they take it each day by day, right? And just looking at what you've got to achieve today. And it's much more empowering. We were talking about the journey earlier as well, being able to live where you are now rather than setting the outcome, but making sure you're celebrating those little wins. And as part of neuroencoding, we're always patting ourselves on the back and praising it. So that's a key one as well. So really enjoyed the conversation today. And, you know, I've got a ton of value for myself, and I know the listener will as well. Always learning a lot from both of you. So thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate it. Where can people find you if they want to find out a little bit more about your work?
Well, thank you, Johnny, so much for having us, and like Shyla said at the beginning, for creating a platform like this to spread messages about confidence and development. And maybe this is all things that you have heard before, but there was a nugget of reminder in here for you. Or maybe this is brand new information, and we hope that you take it and turn it into action. If you want more from Shyla and I, you can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, or you can head to our website. All of them have the same handle, Kay and Shi, KayandShi. We would love to have you on Instagram especially, or just check out our website, kayandshi.com.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be sure to link those in the show notes as well, for people to find you. So once again, a big thank you for coming onto the show today, Kay and Shyla.
Thank you, Johnny. We appreciate you. And thanks to everybody out there for listening. We hope you have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember, work on your self-confidence every single day.